Okay, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Vivian. You probably know me as Jazz Lassie 6020 on DeviantArt and/or Instagram. And today I thought I would take the chance to talk about how I go about drawing these five characters, the Nordic Five. So more than likely, if you're watching this video, you already know who the Nordic Five are, in which case you can just feel free to skip ahead to the important parts. Um, if you don't, though, these characters are from the webcomic series Hetalia, which reimagines every nation as an anime or manga character. Honestly, personally, I find the source material a little bit on the questionable side, but I've always really enjoyed these five characters in particular. These five, of course, represent the Nordic nations, including Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Finland, and Sweden. Um, and I always really found their personalities and their quirks and the way they interact with each other, especially as if they were a family, to be really adorable and really just an endless source of creative inspiration. With these five characters, I never run out of ideas or anything to draw. And actually, as a matter of fact, having these five characters always on the back of my mind has really helped me to develop my art skills and to develop my style, help me to find my artistic voice. So today I thought I would pay tribute to these five um, by talking about my approach to drawing each of them. With no further ado, I'm going to jump right on ahead and talk about my approach to drawing each of them, and also maybe a little bit about how to avoid same face syndrome, which is really, really easy trap to fall into when you're drawing comics or anime styles. With no further ado, let's go right on ahead. All right, we're going to start with the self-proclaimed king of Scandinavia. He always likes being first, so we're going to start with him. So this is Denmark. Um, what I've learned is when I'm drawing characters, instead of focusing on what the character looks like, it's best to focus on who the character is and think about who they are as a person, what their personality is like. So Denmark as a person he's cheerful, jovial, joyful, he's youthful, he acts a little bit not his age, and he's what I like to call a lovable idiot. He's uh, not the brightest bulb, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he's lovable, and we love him for that. So, whenever I draw Denmark, no matter how many times I've drawn him, and I've drawn him so many times over the years, two things always get me a little bit stuck. One of them is his gravity-defying hair. His hair obeys its own laws of gravity. And I've seen them drawn as if they're all very long and they stick out in multiple different directions. And I found that that works, but the more accurate way of drawing his hair, for me anyway, is to first look for the hairline. Think about, okay, so where's the hair growing out from? And then from that hairline, draw three or four clumps that just kind of go in the opposite direction from whatever you're facing. So magically, no matter which way he's facing, somehow the long clumps of hair are always facing the opposite end. And then the rest of the hair is shorter and a little bit closer to the head. And by the time you get to the nape of the neck, the hair pretty much sticks very closely to the head, which helps to define the shape of his head. The other thing that gives me some trouble sometimes is trying to figure out how to represent Denmark's masculinity while at the same time, because he is a very masculine character, but then at the same time, he's also very boyish and young. So, those two things I found the way to do it is first of all to draw his jawline quite large. Um, and then the neck quite thick, and the brows also quite thick. So these things that represent a more masculine character, but then at the same time, his expression, like his eyes, are very wide open. His mouth is a little bit wide and always smiling. Um, and yeah, other things that help to make it look like he's a very happy-go-lucky character. I find that that helps to make him look both masculine, but at the same time, young. So, just to recap, the really important things to look out for when drawing Denmark is um, first of all, make sure to always draw him with wide open eyes. And then thicker brows to make it more apparent that his brow bones are bigger, which is more masculine. A strong square jaw, a wide neck, spiky hair that sticks to one side of the head. Somehow magically always seems to be the side that it always seems to be facing away from the viewer. And then a very happy-go-lucky expression. And then with that, you've got Denmark. So that's my approach. Moving on swiftly to the next character now. This is Norway. So who is Norway as a character? I think of Norway as really being a foil character to Denmark. Whatever Denmark is, Norway is either not or he's the opposite. So he's very calm, very relaxed. He's a little bit spacey, not quite part of this world, a little bit mysterious. And has a troll is a troll. So he's a bit of a mischievous person. He can be annoying at times, but not hard to understand, um, but well-meaning. So whenever I draw Norway, I try to keep his that mysterious air about, and the way to do it, or I do it, is to keep the eyes half drawn or not very wide open. So, it kind of gives him that really relaxed and kind of spacey demeanor. Um, I keep the hair soft and not spiky, kind of close to the head. And in order to further reinforce that sort of airy-fairy feeling to him, I try to give him a more gentle jawline. But this, I kind of need to emphasize. Norway, uh, I the way that I imagine Norway to be, he's not a feminine character. Sometimes he's portrayed as being very, very feminine. I think part of that is because he's next to Denmark, who is very masculine. So in order to contrast that, sometimes Norway is made to be is kind of a female character almost. And it's okay to portray Norway like that if that's the way you like to imagine him. The way I imagine him, though, that is he is a masculine character. He's still a guy, and he's a young man. He's just not as masculine as Denmark or Sweden are. So the other thing that I really, really like to focus on is making his character apparent even without his hairpin and the curl. Sometimes when I see the way that people draw the Nordic Five, it kind of looks like it's the same character over, but with like different pieces added. So a hair clip or some spiky hair. But it's really important when drawing a character to make sure that they look or feel the way that like themselves, even without those cosmetic changes to them. So here are the things that I personally focus on whenever I'm drawing Norway. So I'm just gonna wait for it to load a little bit. And there we go. So whenever I'm drawing Norway, it's really important for me to make sure that his expression is usually relaxed, unless there's something really, really serious happening. His eyes are usually half drawn, and sometimes you don't see the highlight because they're drawn down. Um, he has a more delicate jawline, but not a feminine one. His hair is round, soft and not spiky. And he has thinner brows, so not very thick ones. And this is a little detail that's is often missed, but his hair is actually a little bit long and curled on the bottom. So you can make it look like Norway without it having that. But yeah, I like to add that little detail just to make it a little bit more apparent sometimes. Next up on our list, we have Iceland. So Iceland is who is Iceland as a character? He's the youngest of the Nordic Five. He's just under adult age, biologically speaking, not chronologically speaking. Chronologically, I think he's about 900 years old. Not that he acts very much like it. Um, and Iceland is very much the teenager of the group. So, he's in contrast to his older brother, Norway. Norway is strange, and so is Iceland, apparently. But whereas Norway is very confident in his own strangeness, he's kind of, quite comfortable with it being the strange person that he is. Sometimes he even uses it to his advantage. Iceland isn't. Iceland is still very much at the age where he's trying to find out who he is. He's trying to, come to terms with the fact that he can see magical beings. He's trying to figure out, what his strengths are, not unlike teenagers of his age. So, and like some teenagers of his age, in order to make up for this lack of confidence, he tries to appear more mature than he actually feels or is. So we end up with imposter syndrome, where he's constantly kind of uncomfortable or appears uncomfortable with who he is or the situations he's in, or he tries to criticize a little bit more than he should just to make it seem like he's a bit more mature. When I'm drawing Iceland, um, the things that I keep in mind are that, first of all, his eyes are larger than Norway's. Norway's eyes are half drawn down, and Iceland's eyes are wide open, or at least wider than Nor's. Um, his jawline and the rest of his face, or structure of his face, is a little bit more like Norway's. Not very masculine just yet, and that's likely because he's still growing. Um, his hair, when I'm drawing his hair, uh, the one thing that really, when I'm drawing Iceland, the one step that makes it Iceland is when I draw the bangs facing in. So when I'm drawing his hair, I always need to make sure that his bangs are curling into his head, and kind of touching his cheekbones. Um, Sometimes Iceland is confused with Finland, so when they're drawn together, sometimes they look more alike than they really should, and that's because their hair can sometimes be confused with one another. As a matter of fact, though, Iceland's hair is very, very different from Finland's. Iceland's hair is very messy and irregular, so there's little tufts just sticking out in all sorts of directions. It's kind of questionable whether he actually combs his hair in the morning, probably not. So therefore, he's got those irregular tufts. As we will see with Finland, that's not true because Finland's hair sticks out, or doesn't stick out. It's very regular and round. Okay, so that's one of the things to keep in mind when drawing Iceland. So just to recap again, so the hair on the side curls inward towards the cheekbones. Little tufts of hair sticks out and in regular places, and the eyes are rounder than with Norway. Next up, we have Sweden, the strong, silent one. So, out of the five, I personally find Sweden to be the hardest for me to draw, and that's partly because, like, in order to draw him accurately, in order to draw him well, um, of the five characters, I find he's the one where I really, really need to know about realistic human anatomy. So Sweden is the most masculine, I think, of the five characters. He's really much the strong, silent type. He has an intimidating appearance, but that doesn't really show up when we actually draw him. And he's supposed to be emotional as well, but he doesn't show that on his face. So you've got a bunch of characteristics of this guy that don't make it to his physical appearance. Um, when I draw Sweden, or when I do try to draw Sweden, I don't draw him very, very often, simply because I find him so hard to draw. Um, but I find I need to like stick pretty closely to realistic human anatomy. So you see that, I draw his eyes quite small, his brows quite narrow, um, and I draw them further away from the nose. So it might not be too apparent, but the nose is quite a bit further away from the eyes than with Norway or Iceland or Finland. And that is because I want to make it apparent that his face is large and a little bit longer. Um, and it's also a little bit more realistic. When I draw the rest of him, he is a very strong character, so I need to make sure that his neck is quite a bit thicker, or at least, looks quite sturdy. Um, and when I draw his eyes, I need to make sure that, the irises are kept quite small and the pupil also small. So this kind of contributes to a more intimidating appearance for him. It makes him look a little bit scarier. Except, of course, as we all know, he's not really a scary person. He just looks it. Um, and his hair, instead of being short and spiky, it's actually quite soft and relaxed again. So there's actually a lot of things that I keep note of whenever I'm drawing Sweden because he's so difficult for me. But starting from, just let the page load a little bit, and starting from the top. So number one, I always make sure that his eyes are small and close to the brows. And this is to make his face appear a little bit longer and also keeps to a more realistic proportion. His face and jawline are strong and angular, so there's a lot more angles in there because he's a strong character like that. His mouth, I try and make a little bit further from the nose, just again to keep to that longer, bigger face proportion. His neck is muscular, and in general, all his features are quite pale. So, if we think of the really stereotypical Scandinavian, I think Sweden actually sticks the most closely to that stereotype. He's tall, he's big, he's strong, and his features are in general are quite pale. So he's got pale eyes, he's got pale hair, he's got pale skin, and even his brows are pale. And his hair is short and loose and doesn't really stick out and isn't very spiky. Or, um, or it's a little bit spiky, but only near the top, and the rest kind of, slopes down a little bit. And last but certainly not least, we have the fifth and final nation, the one that finishes it, Finland. So, oh God, how do we even begin to describe Finland? So, Finland is small but mighty. So, he's friendly, he's warm, he's talkative. But he can definitely end you if he wanted. So, um, actually, as a representation of country, if we think that each of these characters are supposed to represent the stereotypes of their countries, Finland's actually the worst representation because when I first um, knew about this character, I knew nothing about Finland. I knew it existed somewhere on the face of the earth, and that's basically it. But then once I, became more familiar and acquainted myself with some Finnish people, I realized like, oh, actually, this is the Finland. The character is actually nothing like the stereotypical Finn, and nothing like stereotypes of Finland. It's actually probably the opposite. Save for the small but mighty and can definitely end you if you wanted kind of characteristics. As a character, though, and I still really like him. I think he's really adorable. Um, when I draw him, everything that I draw with Finland is round. His hair is round. His head is round. His eyes are round. His irises are definitely round, and his shoulders are also round. So he's supposed to be yes, he's small, he's mighty, but then, on his off days when he's not trying to kill somebody, he is a gentle character. And in order to represent that, all the shapes of his body and his face and everything are very, very round and seemingly harmless. Big, big um, sort of emphasis on that seemingly, but he's very gentle, very happy looking. His eyes are wide, and you just don't feel like you're threatened by this character, unless you get on his bad side. Um, So, the notes, things to note about Finland is he's got a very round head. So, unlike Iceland, there are no stray pieces just kind of like popping out. So, whereas Iceland's hair is very bedheaded, Finland clearly keeps his hair very, very neat. His eyes are very round and big. And when I draw him, I try to keep the brows a bit further from the eyes. And this just helps to give him a more friendly, open expression, just to keep maintaining that illusion, that lie. So that's Finland for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you would like to see more art, please feel free to visit these websites and have a great rest of your day. Bye.